Hi, this is Nancy Buswell, and you are listening to the Listen and Repeat series number 119. This is Sherlock Holmes in The Speckled Band, Part 3. Now we will hear the story of the woman who came early and woke up Sherlock Holmes, and then Sherlock woke up his good friend John Watson. So now we'll hear her story and see what the problem is. Listen and repeat. Copy how my voice goes up and down. That's called intonation. Copy my pronunciation also. Listen and repeat. My name is Helen Stoner, and I am living with my stepfather. Who is the last survivor of one of the oldest Saxon families in England. The Roylotts of Stoke Moran. On the western border of Surrey. Holmes nodded his head. The name is familiar to me, said he. The family was at one time among the richest in England. And the estates extended over the borders into Berkshire in the north and Hampshire in the west. In the last century, however, 4 successive heirs were of a dissolute and wasteful disposition. Now the word is heirs. The H is silent. Heirs. And the family ruin was eventually completed by a gambler in the days of the Regency. Nothing was left save a few acres of ground. And the 200-year-old house. Which is itself crushed under a heavy mortgage. The word mortgage has a T in it, but it's not pronounced. The last squire dragged out his existence there, living the horrible life of an aristocratic pauper. So aristocratic means very high class, a high class person. Pauper means a very poor person. But his only son, my stepfather, seeing that he must adapt himself to the new conditions, obtained an advance from a relative. Which enabled him to take a medical degree, which enabled him to take a medical degree and went out to Calcutta, India, where, by his professional skill and his force of character, He established a large practice. In a fit of anger, however, caused by some robberies which had been perpetuated in the house, he beat his native butler to death. And narrowly escaped a capital sentence. That means a death sentence. As it was, he suffered a long term of imprisonment. And afterwards returned to England a morose and disappointed man. When Dr. Roylott was in When Dr. Roylott was in India, he married my mother. Mrs. Stoner, the young widow of Major General Stoner. Of the Bengal Artillery. My sister Julia and I were twins. And we were only 2 years old at the time of my mother's remarriage. She had a considerable sum of money. Not less than £1,000 a year. And this she bequeathed to Dr. Roylott entirely, while we resided with him. With a provision that a certain annual sum should be allowed to each of us in the event of our marriage. Shortly after our return to England, my mother died. She was killed 8 years ago in a railway accident near Crewe. Dr. Roylott then abandoned his attempts to establish himself in practice in London, and took us to live with him in the old ancestral house at Stoke Moran. The money which my mother had left was enough for all of our wants. And there seemed to be no obstacle to our happiness. But a terrible change came over our stepfather about this time. Instead of making friends and exchanging visits with our neighbours, who had at first been overjoyed to see a Roylott of Stoke Moran, back in the old family seat. He shut himself up in his house. And seldom came out save to indulge in ferocious quarrels. With whoever might cross his path. Violence of temper approaching to mania has been hereditary in the men of the family. And in my stepfather's case, it had, I believe, been intensified by his long residence in the tropics. A series of disgraceful brawls took place. Two of which ended in the police court. Until at last he became the terror of the village. And the folks would fly at his approach. For he is a man of immense strength, and absolutely uncontrollable in his anger. Last week he hurled the local blacksmith over a parapet into a stream. And it was only by paying over all the money which I could gather together that I was able to avert another public exposure. He had no friends at all, save the wandering gypsies. And he would give these vagabonds leave to encamp upon the few acres of bramble-covered land which represent the family estate. And would accept in return the hospitality of their tents. Wandering away with them sometimes for weeks on end. He has a passion also for Indian animals. Which are sent over to him by a correspondent. And he has at this moment a cheetah and a baboon. Which wander freely over his grounds. And are feared by the villagers almost as much as their master. A cheetah wandering freely on on his estate. That's scary. Baboon, too. Yeah. Okay, so we have an introduction to her problem. She tells us about her stepfather. In the next episode of this series, we'll see what her problem is. So thanks for listening. I hope you found this useful, and I hope you have a good day.